what is the difference between acceptance and radical acceptance? And what I came to is that radical acceptance is the active choice to choose yourself. The action of asserting yourself into the narrative of life instead of allowing the narrative of others become your life.
Welcome, queer kittens, to Quest, a journey to wellness. I'm V, a two-spirit human, joy influencer, energy worker, and dad joke connoisseur. All pronouns accepted. Our mission with this podcast is to help queer folks find radical acceptance through loving themselves and others in their community. You'll hear stories from folks who have taken their happiness and well-being into their own hands by examining what they've found helpful along the way. We hope this podcast brings you joy where you'll learn, laugh, heal, and grow. Welcome back, queer kittens, and welcome, new earballs. We talk a lot about radical acceptance on the pod, and coming off the holidays and being with a family and loved ones, I think we could all say we all need a little bit of holiday aftercare. And for you kinksters out there, you know what I'm talking about. Because the chaos of the holidays, it throws us off our vibe. Like, we get out of our routine. We get out of our comfort bubble of the safe spaces that we're cultivating. And sometimes we get into those spaces that bring up old triggers, new triggers, and trying to navigate through those sometimes can be challenging. And here on the pod, you know, we felt it to be very necessary to do a little aftercare together. Talk about a lot of these things that come up for us and share ways that we overcome some of these things, and also just be vulnerable with somebody else and just talk these conversations that we don't often share. And I think that simply us having these conversations today, I know is going to be healing. Because every time I talk with this team, it's healing. And because of that, we got two of the Quest team members jumping on today with us. We have the lovely Stevie Cua for their fourth appearance on our podcast. And we're going to have Raphaella Landestoy. And for those of y'all who don't know, she is my partner. So you will see us in the video together for those of y'all who are on YouTube. And, you know, without further ado, I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Stevie, non-binary, all pronouns accepted. I love tigers and mushrooms still. I just feel like, and my big astrological 3, I am Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Hot.
Capricorn, Sun, Gemini Rising, and Leo Moon.
Hi, my name is Raphaella Landestoy. She, her pronouns. I am a Afro-Latina from the Bay Area. Aries, Sagittarius, Moon, and Rising. And I know, sorry for all of you that just got scared and a little triggered. I get it. And my queer fact would be that I am a proud cat mom.
Shout out to Nugget.
Shout out to Nugget White Paw Vasquez.
Shout out to Nugget.
This team has been such a gift and so wonderful. And, you know, having this episode today, talking about some real topics that I feel like don't get talked about enough. And I think that we just jump onto, okay, new year, new me, and just sweep the rest under the rug. So I appreciate you guys coming on today and being a part of this with me.
I agree. It's I think it became clear to all of us when we had our weekly meetings for the podcast that we were all kind of going through our own processing and healing from the holiday season and, you know, family and friends and all those that we love, but that deeply affect us and sometimes not always in the best way, unfortunately. But we felt that it was important to come together and use this space that we have cultivated together as a space for not just us to heal, but for our listeners. And hopefully, you know, the things that we talk about today can bring some healing and understanding for whoever's out there listening. It's important.
Yeah, definitely. And we realize that there are some people out there who are very curious about our theme of radical acceptance and self-love. And we thought that we will dive into this together and give you all our definitions of what we feel radical acceptance and self-love is for us and how we got there, or how we got to the place of desire to have that for ourselves. And so I'm going to throw the mic at you, Stevie, and let the world know a little piece of your brain towards radical acceptance and self-love.
I would eat your brain.
Well, I would eat your brain.
Oh my God.
And your brain.
Right? Just eating brains all day.
This is now a zombie channel.
Zombie healing 101.
Zombie healing. Renewal. Radical acceptance to me is, I want to start with this quote. The curious paradox is when I accept myself, I can change. And I think this quote has really been one of those things that are just so meaningful. Understanding where I might not be able to accomplish something because of my personal limitations and not resigning in that, but rather taking action effectively to still be significant within myself without the external validation. It's definitely a constant practice. It's not like this is how I am all the time. I always have like these feelings, like even today, like I texted my friend and I was like, I feel lame, but it's like taking the time to like have aftercare and shared spaces with people who are supportive to who you are and remind you of this core really brings me peace. And then ultimately brings me to self-love.
I mean, this comes back full circle. Community heals. Mm-hmm. They remind you, like,
community is a cure.
Exactly. The chosen community reminds you who you are, grounds you back into who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's powerful.
Mm-hmm. And remember how we were talking about like blood family versus like chosen family and like blood family? Like I think recently what I was reminded of was it's okay to sit with the people you love and their differences as long as you are still honored and loved. And then, so like that's the blood family, right? And then the chosen family, like it's more of like an acceptance and a receiving because it's a chosen family. It's like you're a lot more alignment in thought and like morals, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's also still like a degree there to sit with those differences as long as you're still honored and loved.
And that brings me to you, having you define, Raphaella, for yourself, what radical acceptance and self-love looks for you.
It's funny that this episode is happening when it's happening. I think for all of us, we've kind of talked about how it feels very like poignant to where we are in our lives. And specifically for me, it's very poignant with where I am in my life. Radical acceptance was an idea for a very long time. It was like that dream that I had. And I think right now where I am is when I'm finally having to put the training wheels on and figure out what that means for me and actually actively choose to do it. And so I was sitting with it yesterday of like, what is the difference between acceptance and radical acceptance? And what I came to is that radical acceptance is the active choice to choose yourself, right? So what I wrote down was the action of asserting yourself into the narrative of life instead of allowing the narrative of others become your life. You know?
Yes.
So
Super powerful.
yeah, and
Can you explain what that means for you?
yeah, so I'm realizing now where I'm at in my life that I lived most of my adult life for others in some way or another. And it got to the point where it was so ingrained in my core self and my core energy that I didn't realize it at all until recently, that I put the opinions and the choices of how other people thought I should live my life over my own. And to the point where I didn't really know who I was and what my life was supposed to be or how I wanted my life to be. And recently I've had to come to like face that reality and really actively decide that I am no longer going to let that happen. As hard as that is to do with family and those you care about, it's secretly a blessing in disguise, because it really pushes you to define yourself for yourself in a way that isn't necessarily common when you aren't faced with like people that don't agree with what you think you are, you know? And yeah, I think radical acceptance is the action of. It's that fire that you find within yourself to assert who you are in spaces.
Take up space.
And taking up space.
Yeah, take space.
Taking up space.
You know, I just want to say, like, I think that it's so beautiful that you've offered so much grace and understanding and extended that to people in your life. And
thank you.
That is like a form of like fighting. And now that like the boundary has been pushed to a point where it's affecting you in a negative way, it's okay to set that boundary, you know, because that's like the autonomy of radical acceptance, right? You can choose to allow like that grace and understanding. But once you've hit capacity, like it's also okay to say, hey, like I've hit capacity.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And this affects me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm proud of you. It's not easy stating a boundary at all, especially with people that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy at all. I think we've all faced that in some form of another, you know, and I don't think it's ever really gonna get easier, but it's necessary.
And one of the things I really love about this team is like, I remember there was this one time where like I spoke up about like my feelings, and the space itself was so supportive. It wasn't like people like siding. It was just like, well, let's help translate what's going on. And then at the end, it was like understanding that it was just different perspectives and different wounds from the past of whatever that was.
V, what about you?
Yeah.
How do you define radical acceptance?
Well, I think for me, when this question was asked for me, the first thing I did was look up what radical meant. So I looked at the definition and found through like Cambridge University, because I tried to find like a definition that didn't have a viewpoint behind it. So I chose like, what's a dictionary that will give me unbiased viewpoints? So what it means is that it's an adjective, and it's like being an example of great change. And that put me into the thought of like being an example of great change for acceptance. I think that the way with my upbringing, it was always the opposite. It wasn't acceptance. It was always like, you need to do more of this, you need to do more of that. But not only from home, but from school, from the world, just like the world constantly reminding me or trying to make me have this belief that I am not enough. And I think where that comes around is that changing my perspective, like a huge change of not believing that. And by existing simply of who I am and just showing up no matter how hard it is in whatever part of my life I arrive, by doing it and holding my head up high and just accepting that either those people can jump on the train, or if they want to stay behind, they can stay behind. That's up to them, because I've come to a point where I've accepted that I am a gift. And if you don't want this gift, you're lost. Yeah. And I think that brings me to like conditional love and unconditional love. And I think that for that radical acceptance, we have to take away those conditions. But at the same time, there's still that layer of like protecting ourself. Sometimes that acceptance will have to come with accepting bad parts of people, or I don't want to say bad parts of people. Let's say human limitations, because attachments are what hold us back. Our attachments to our beliefs, to a lot of these different things. But to wrap all of this up, basically, like, my radical acceptance is me living in my queer joy, my visibility. My radical acceptance comes with radical action. It's accepting every part of who I am for me, not for what everybody else is trying to tell me I should be.
Yep.
But also, on the same front of it, trying to do the same and accept others for where they're at. And not try to have my ideas and judgments placed on them where I think they need to be.
Yeah. So radical acceptance for yourself and for others.
Yeah. So basically, of nothing that I can't control. If I can't control it, that's what it is. Accept that. I have no control over nothing but myself.
Definitely. In obsessing of things that I can't control, I've started to see it more as an inconvenience. So rather reframing and shifting towards myself and what I can control, and then like allowing the things externally to just be. And I really am so proud of you. Like, V, I actually listened to this story from someone like I very much respect. And they were talking about finding the significance within themselves versus receiving the significance from external validation. And I feel to a degree I've done that, but sometimes when I hear things said so clearly, I want to take a moment to honor that aspect and realize that like that's not an easy task.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Same.
Thank you. Thank you. It definitely wasn't an easy process.
Right? Wrapped up all
you are a gift.
Nice and deliciously too.
It's taken a lot to get here. My beliefs used to be a lot darker in being that no one will notice if I'm gone. So I've gone from that extreme to now where I'm at now.
I feel that.
That brings me to the holidays, the whole reason why we're talking about holiday aftercare, because I thought about my own family dynamic and how during this time when I was so dark is because I was living for everyone else. Like, my family was very vocal on how they felt I should live my life and how they felt that I should present myself to the world. And the moves that I needed to make in life to be successful. And my whole life I've always thought that my success will equate my worth, will thus equate the love that I receive from my family.
Yeah.
So I think that in the beginning, when I would go to the holidays, I was afraid because I was like, they're going to come, I'm not even going to go into details, but just mention, I might go into details, but like from my weight to my sexuality to my hair to, my job to my car to a lot of different things, to my relationships to, it was like I was under a microscope and I wasn't just there to be there for the holidays. To now, like I can just be there and exist exactly the way that I am, and they enjoy me. They enjoy me and I enjoy them, and I just feel so much more present. And honestly, maybe a little safer.
Yo, that resonates with me so much.
Yeah.
Because I've had like similar experiences with my family, like as far as, different family members saying different things as far as like my body type or little things. And with family, I think like sometimes we forget that they're human, and with people close to us that they're human, because to a degree, how I see my family is almost like deities, God, superhuman. You know what I mean? I put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And so being under a microscope and just like the judgment, right? Like I want them to be completely aligned because I feel my way is right. But then I realize how human they are and how human I am. And they're just taking what they know from their experiences in life and like whatever like ecosystem that they grew up in. And they're just trying to love me the best that they can and the way that they know how. It might not be the right way, but I think with my family, like I've always felt this like very strong support for me to just be who I am. I think it kind of started in this sort of like American dream constructed way where it was like go to college, marry a good man, have kids, like live a good life. And then I was like, I'm gay. And they're like, well, are you happy? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, all right, go to college, have some kids, live a good life. And I was like, I don't know if institutionalized education is for me. They're like, are you happy? And I'm like, they're like, okay. And then like it continued on. And so I felt like this level of support to still kind of experiment or just like figure out who I am, because what is figuring yourself out but experimenting and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations or things, right? But yeah, like that resonates with me so much with what you're saying as far as being loved in the wrong way sometimes.
How would you say that? Because you talked about coming from a place of being very like emotionally affected by your family and the way that they were treating you and like the criticisms that they were giving you, to now getting to the point where you are able to exist fully within yourself and enjoy and be more present. Like, what do you feel was the aha moments that got you to be able to get to that point? Because I think we're all three of us are kind of at a different spectrum and like timeline of kind of the same idea, which is like radical acceptance for ourselves and for others. But like, what is it that you felt worked for you to get to that point?
Understanding why they were being so critical of me. Like they asked me about my weight fluctuation because they might have been concerned about my thyroid, or that maybe I wasn't eating or taking care of myself. When I gained weight, they were concerned that it could potentially be my thyroid, or like it could be something else like diabetes or gout. And then realizing that the frustration is not necessarily from them, but rather it's from the societal pressures of being a certain fitness or body type. You know, and in that, their intention was very like much about love, right? Their impact was negative because of my wound that was developed in me through societal pressures to be fit.
So we already got all this shame and guilt from society And then our folks just kind of like exacerbate that even more. And then we're just like defeated for a moment.
Right.
And then, but then realizing like they're actually trying to communicate something else, but their delivery just really sucks.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but I think this is just more my personal situation with my parents, realizing that it wasn't like a malicious thing to just like pick at me. Because I do think that some people just pick on some people, you know. Yeah. But my parents, it was more like concern for me. And like that helped me to like give them grace and be like, you know, they're not asking me about my weight because, you know, they want to be mean. They're asking me about my weight because they're concerned for my health because they love me.
That's lovely that you have that idea of your folks, or that you have that trust that that is what your folks were, that they're coming from there. And I think that for my own personal thing, it's a little harder for me to trust that.
Same.
I think that deep in my heart, I know that they love the heck out of me. And I think that sometimes that the safety of the reputation of the family sometimes can come first before my feelings, before my experience.
Sure.
And so sometimes I feel like because the reputation of the family, that my family's beliefs are projected onto me because I'm not fitting that idea of how I should represent this family.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's definitely similar to my experience too, where there's the sense that you are a reflection of their character in some way or another. And everything that you do, say, or act on is going to either make them look good or look bad to those around them. And then having that projected back on you.
I think that's like a common thing for sure.
I did want to answer your question, though. I don't know if you had, and was that directed toward me? Or...
Well, I loved Stevie's answer, and I probably should have directed it to both of you. So yeah, go ahead and answer.
To answer your question, my aha moments of being able to get from that dark space and to the level of acceptance that I am at now was like, honestly, multiple things throughout the years that I'm still experiencing, to where I guess you want to call them like spiritual awakenings, where I read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle that like really sparked it all for me, and was just like, wait a minute, like I'm living in the past or I'm living in the future, and both of these places, they don't exist, but I'm living there. Like that blew my mind. And then also the 5 levels of attachment from Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., where he talks about like, basically what he's saying is like, if you change your thoughts, you change your world. That's a quote from someone else named Norman Vincent Peale. If you change your thoughts, you change your world. Like that also blew my mind too, because it was just kind of like, I was always like, oh, this is the hand I'm dealt with, so I'm stuck with this, like that's it. And never thought of like, oh, well, if I change what's going on in here, this hand that I'm dealt with completely changes. And that also blew my mind. And lastly, there's a book by a queer woman. Her name's Debbie Ford. It's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And basically, like, she has this analogy of a castle, and there's these rooms. And some of these rooms are dusty as heck. And when you open that door, it's an experience in your life where somebody made you feel shame, where somebody made you feel guilt, where somebody really embarrassed the fuck out of you, that you never want to do that action ever again. And in that, she says that these rooms are sometimes the reasons why we're so judgmental on other people. So then I got to the point of like, all right, I need to clean these rooms up. And that came with accepting me, accepting what was done to me, and how I can view what happened to me and also not put somebody else in that predicament.
Yeah.
So whenever I get to the point of like judging someone from something, I'm like, ooh, did somebody do that to me? I actually stop and think about like, oh, why am I judging this person like this?
Yeah.
Somebody must have did this to me.
Yeah, that reminds me of the idea, and I think we've talked about this in our own spiritual practices, because it comes up a lot in what we do, this idea of breaking generational curses, right?
Mm.
And I was talking to my therapist about this recently of like, when you first come in contact with this concept, at least for me, like I saw it as this like whimsical, you know, like you're breaking these like feather voodoo bottles and then like you crash it and then all the curses have dissipated in your life and then now you're like perfectly aligned in kumbaya all the fucking time.
Nah.
And it's so
It's
not
rough.
that. It is
It's ugly.
so chaotic.
It's rough.
It's so ugly. It's so
Ugly.
painful. There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of like ugly crying in a
Lot of
corner.
tears.
Like it's not easy. And I think that has brought me a lot of healing too, of like understanding why certain people in my life have not been able to get to this point for themselves. Because realistically, like we've been given the privilege now in this lifetime to be able to have these hard conversations with people and having the space and having these like terms and definitions of things that our parents and their grandparents didn't have. And also on top of that, having kids and jobs and capitalism and patriarchy. Like there's so many layers to what it was to be in the world prior to us being around that like it would almost be a disservice to not have that be put into the context of the conversation. What we're doing now in these conversations is a part of breaking those generational curses, is like starting to hold ourselves, our actions, and those around us accountable, you know, so that we don't continue these patterns in our lives and in those around us.
Yeah. I like the way that you put that, Rafi, because it's just like, because I'm receiving that in the perspective of myself, right? I'm a first generation to this country and my parents are immigrants, and their generational curse and like whatever they dealt with in their experience from their country. Now that, you know, I'm here first generation, I have the opportunity to heal that, whatever that is for them, right?
Yeah.
Or like for the bloodline, for the genes, right? Not necessarily them, but for the bloodline. So I really like the way that you framed that, the opportunity to break that generational curse, because we are no longer in that environment of that, and we can almost create what we need to do, right?
That brings me to a thought I had when I was thinking about like defining radical acceptance of the fact that how I'm here today came through pain, came through colonization, came from love, came from perseverance. The fact that such dark things came out, but such love and such like perseverance came out of such a dark place, like both of those things coexisting, is why I exist today. Makes me remember that those two things still need to exist with me.
Yeah.
And accepting that.
Yeah.
Instead of being hard on myself because I'm not perfect, or because I don't speak Spanish or Tagalog or Visayan, or I don't know cultural traditions from either tribe I'm part of, so, or that I have melanated skin and living in America. Like, you know, there's all these layers and layers of things that my whole life, like, I felt like was holding me down and being like, you're not enough of this, you're not enough of that. So you need more education. You need to go learn this. You need to go learn that. When I'm realizing it's not about what I need to learn, it's about what I need to unlearn.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And the deconstruction period is hard.
Yeah.
You know, like it is hard.
Yeah.
I remember when I decided I didn't want to go to college anymore, and I was working a retail job, and I just kind of like accepted that you know? And like, I think of like the space I was in then versus kind of like taking in, I guess, the lies that society constructs and finding my significance. I don't know. I would have never dreamed then to be doing what I do today, or just like where I am today, even like on this, like, I mean,
same.
I don't know. Like, the more you come into acceptance of your environment and the more you find the significance within yourself, I just feel the sky's the limit.
I know that thus far we've been very vulnerable, and I just really thought of something that I'm currently struggling with right now is my capacity to forgive. I've noticed that I have a very forgiving heart for a lot of different things, and there's other things that come up that it's just a little bit harder for me to forgive. Like, I let go of a big part of it, but then there's still just a little bit of resentment just chilling. And I'm just really curious, like, Stevie and Rafi, like, what is your process to forgive?
I think that a good way for me to explain it is that recently a really good friend of mine and I are having differences, and it is something I feel we will never align on in my heart. And I love this person so much to my core. And I think right now what we have to do is just change the dynamic to save the love. And that's okay. I really think that that's okay, because I really believe that love is a choice. And when we understand our own capacity and how that love or that person might impact you in a way that you don't feel significant, I think it's okay to reframe and reformat that love so that you can really bring just that like sincere gratitude and love for them. And I really believe that they want the same for me, because in my heart, our love is so real. So it's easy for me to forgive and embrace those differences because I know that this person loves me so much. But it's okay to define your boundaries and capacity. And I believe that we will be okay. And I believe that our love will be stronger. And I think that's just kind of the faith that you have to have when you choose love. I was listening to an audiobook by, I think her name is Tara Brach. It's called Radical Acceptance, Embracing Your Life with the Heart of Buddha. And one thing that came up, or I think like just in my research or just like kind of like going through all of this, it was this quote by Albert Ellis: "The emotionally mature individual should completely accept the fact that we live in a world of probability and chance, where there are not, nor probably ever will be, any absolute certainties, and should realize that it is not at all horrible."
Releasing control, basically. Right?
Yeah. And just accepting things as they are, loving people as they are. I don't know, I feel like me just being as I am has really benefited me my whole life. And I definitely attribute that to a very like lucky space. Like, I'm super fortunate with my family just loving me at every single stage of my life. I radically accept that. And that's not, I don't even know if that's like a radical acceptance thing, but I know it's not common for sure. And I just want that to be my gift to the world, is to offer people support where they are.
I think I needed that more than I realize. As I sit here in my radical acceptance, that there's a lot of forgiveness that I still need to work through and get to, because I think that, sure, it's anger is there, but I think underneath that is pain, because either my safety or someone I love's safety was taken away and ignored. And I'm such a protector over those I love. Sometimes it's hard to find that forgiveness because I'm such a soldier for those I love. Like, that were put in a predicament of being unsafe, that continue to be in spaces that make them feel unsafe. And I'm trying to find how to do that forgiveness, how to sit in that love towards someone that continues to make someone I feel or that I love unsafe. Whether that's me, because I love me, or whether that's somebody else. Just that constant feeling of unsafety. It's like I am still learning how to navigate through that. But I know I do have that desire, because I know that forgiveness will release me. It won't release them of accountability or any of that, but it'll release my hurt that I relive, like that I am crying now trying to explain to you about.
I really feel like, I'm so scared of this change in this relationship with this person that I love so much. I'm so scared because I love them so much.
Yeah. This is us like processing these things together.
Yeah. And the thing that really sparked me recently about forgiveness was watching like a Don Miguel Ruiz podcast on YouTube. And he said, forgiveness is the moment you no longer wish the past was different, and you accept it, and then you let it go. And that hit me so hard because we're trying to change the past.
Sure. When you were talking about that, like forgiveness is release, like it's true. It's not for them. It's because like I can't control them. It's for myself, because I don't want to keep looking backwards, because what's done is done. I just want to love them for now and support them for now and their future. And, I really believe that that's what they also want for me. I think that that's still a love to be honored, even though we are so different.
Yeah, and I think that the best way that forgiveness has worked for me so far is through distance.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it is, right? It's dependent on the relationship and like the safety you feel within that relationship to speak and to talk, right? Like the healthier relationships that we have in our lives, we feel like we're allowed to be more vulnerable and okay. Like if you asked me, like I never thought that I would be in front of a camera, like okay with kind of like explaining my feelings and crying, but I feel like because of this dynamic in the circle in my life and the network in my life that really value my vulnerability, like, I mean, I'm still going to say like, I definitely have feelings about it, but like, I think it's also okay. Like,
It makes it easier when you're supported.
Yeah, it makes it easier for sure. For sure. To just be honest about those feelings and to say what needs to be said. It doesn't have to be like this big dramatic scene where you're just resisting the way that somebody feels, because feelings do matter. There are triggers to something that is not sitting right with our nervous system.
Yeah.
And taking that introspective pause to understand what's not sitting well and our capacity to then confront and deal with certain things, I think is a really important step in radical acceptance, right? Being able to experience the moment in the now and truly understanding yourself and who you are so that you can lean into your autonomy and make decisions for yourself, for the future, in the world and love that you want to create.
Yeah, it's the autonomy. It's the that's the active radical choice of asserting yourself into situations, whether that be through like communication or boundaries. That aspect of it, at least for me, is the point where I'm at now, where this is the first step that needs to be taken in order for me to have the capacity to forgive, is to start loving and accepting myself first in a way that I haven't been given, and learning to do that for myself so that I can then put energy towards other people's experiences. Because for a very long time, like, I lived in the projection of other people's experiences over my own in a way that I didn't have a choice of. You know, I wasn't given a choice to assert what I was feeling or what I needed.
Because you didn't feel safe.
Yeah, because I didn't feel safe. And, you know, safety came up a lot for me in this idea of radical acceptance. Is like, I'm at the point now where it's like physical, in the sense that, like, the only way that I know what the right decision is for me is how it feels in my body when I think about certain things. Like, okay, if this is the decision that I'm going to make for myself, how does that idea feel for me? And if it feels anxious, if it feels unsafe, then I need to, at this point, be strong enough to assert that I'm not going to put myself in those situations then. If I have the active choice, you know, there's going to be situations where you walk into things that make you feel unsafe and you can't control it. You can't change it, and that's fine. Yeah. But there are moments in life where you have a choice, and that's where I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, in those moments where I have a choice, I need to assert my needs and then go from there, you know, and let the cards fall how they're going to fall. I was reflecting back on, like, what you guys were talking about, of like how you've been able to find forgiveness for those in your life. And I've found that, like, with you guys and like the relationship that I have with you and the relationship that I have with V, even though I'm not at these points in my life yet, knowing that I have people around me that are at those points or are able to be reflections of those ideas proves to me that I'm on the right path, right? Like, it's almost like when you choose the family around you that fit with the ideas of who you want to have around you, right? Like, they fit your morals, they fit like they understand your boundaries, they give you unconditional love, they become like the stepping stones for who you are to become later on, you know, because you're given these safe spaces to process emotions and go through life in a way that feels safe. I'm very grateful for this team and how we've been able to do that for each other continually. I think that's a great gift that we've been giving, and I'm glad that we're able to put that outwards to the world, to whoever's listening.
I want to touch on something that you said, Raph, because it's a perfect example of what I was saying about Veronica Lightning Horse Perez on IG. Basically, they were talking about there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel significant, but rather maybe what we should do is look at the issues of finding significance through external validation. And in your story, I heard that, or I saw the correlation from your experience in like giving so much and taking care of like others' needs, right? And then realizing what you had to do for yourself and realizing the significance within yourself. And even in your story, V, like finding the significance in yourself rather than the external validation of like judgment, thoughts, et cetera, and how that feels so healing to you. Like, that's tight.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and I think that spaces like this, teams like this, friends like this, chosen family like this is what is gonna evolve us as human beings. You know, like cultivating people around us that are gonna call us out on our shit, but with grace. And if not with grace, then we fully know and understand that they're coming from love, and we both trust on both sides that it's from a loving place.
Yeah.
Because two sides on the defense, like, goes nowhere. So like having these
For sure.
spaces where
For sure.
we can just exist, we can not be afraid to fuck up, and have the trust that if I do mess up, somebody's going to tell me something. But by telling me that, you know, you're allowing me the space to grow instead of judging me because I'm not.
For sure.
If
I
that
feel
makes-
that. I'm not trying to be inconvenienced by warfare. You know what I mean? I have a lot of stuff to do. You know, and like, I just feel like fighting is such a waste of time. If you just like accept things as they are, then maybe like you eliminate some of those stressors out of your life. And you like know what you can focus your energy and your attention on.
So on that note, I really wanted to thank y'all for joining me on this conversation and being here as a team on this really heavy topic, on many heavy topics that we touched on today.
Super heavy. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we made it. Made it to today.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, same.
It's always an adventure and a quest.
Oh,
I was about to say, I like your shirt, V.
For those of y'all that
What
didn't
you
know
got there?
what I did when I said quest, I'm wearing our new merch for our podcast, and we have quest written on the shirt, and I rubbed my hand down my chest on the word
Turning into another
quest.
podcast. Subscribe for that one.
But if you want to see exactly what went down, you could just check out YouTube and see what's up. Check out these shirts, and if you want one, DM us, and we'll make it happen. My thank yous to you both for being here and sharing some very, very, very hard things, vulnerably, openly, lovingly, honestly. I appreciate the world out of both of you and love you so deeply.
The feeling's mutual.
I love you too.
We have so much more to explore and share with you on the pod. Tap that follow or subscribe button to get every episode as soon as it's released. And give us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And join our wellness community on Instagram at Quest Wellness Pod. This podcast was produced in collaboration by Kinoko Chocolates and Puka Puka Creative. Executive producer, Stevie Cua. Producer, editor, and sound designer, Leah Jackson. Associate producer, Raphaella Landestoy. Original music produced by Basque. His music is amazing. And we can't forget the emotional support by our fur babies, Frankie, Nugget, and Pukalani.
I forgot I was so nervous that I put this crystal right here.
Where? In your hair? No way. In your third eye? Fuck
Yeah.
That's
fucking love you, Stevie. I fucking love you.
That's hot.
That's so hot.